Hansie Cronje faces cross-examination at cricket's match-fixing inquiry. Parliament in uproar while the government feels more heat over the GST, and schools out for students upset by discipline.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Whaley.
Good evening. Disgraced former South African captain Hansie Cronje was tonight back in the witness seat at cricket's match-fixing inquiry, grilled over his earlier testimony in which he admitted he'd taken tens of thousands of dollars in bribes from bookmakers. There was one positive sign for international cricket at tonight's proceedings. Cronje dragged no new players into the corruption mire. Mark Barlin reports.
In a clear indication of how hard the scandal has hit Cronje, his evidence was preceded by a psychiatric report. The Commission told he's clinically depressed, suffering insomnia and weight loss, has trouble concentrating and remembering simple events.
He had a sense of worthlessness, which went with low self-esteem. He, in addition, had thoughts of death and of dying.
Even so, he was fit to take the stand and did. But despite predictions to the contrary, he said he knew of no other players involved in match fixing apart from those he'd previously named, Pakistan's Salam Malik and India's Mohammad Azharuddin. And again, he voiced support for members of his own side.
I don't think that any one of the team members, certainly that I've played with since 1992 up until the current stage, would have anything to do with it. I think that they're too proud to play for their country.
In other cricket news, Shane Warne has been told his vice-captaincy is at risk after the scandal over his steamy phone calls to nurse Donna Smith. Warne met ACB boss Malcolm Speed for 2 hours in London today and was told his behaviour was unacceptable. It seems unlikely, though, that he'll be fined over the incident. Mark Barlin for Nightline.
There was uproar in Parliament today as 6 MPs were suspended, including Employment Services Minister Tony Abbott, the first minister ejected in 39 years. With just over a week before the introduction of the GST, tensions are rising on both sides of politics. Treasurer Peter Costello has stirred up more controversy with his claim that a rent increase of $10 a week was affordable for the average family.
Tempers were already frayed when the Prime Minister cut proceedings short after an unruly question time.
The Labor Party is not interested in asking questions, Mr. Speaker.
Within minutes, Cheryl Curnow had been sin-binned after clashing with Employment Services Minister Tony Abbott.
I issue a general warning.
But that didn't seem to have much effect.
You are a sanctimonious windbag.
When the dust finally settled, 6 MPs had been given their marching orders. 3 opposition and 3 government members, including Mr Abbott, the first minister to be ejected from Parliament in nearly 40 years.
The minister will excuse himself from the House.
While the kerfuffle may have had nothing to do directly with the GST, the underlying tensions are obvious.
Governments which shut down question times in the face of it are rattled and do not want to be accountable.
With less than a fortnight until it comes into effect, the Prime Minister is appealing to the public simply to give the GST a fair go.
I'm very confident that it'll be a fair system. It's a very big change, and we understand that people are apprehensive.
In the meantime, Treasurer Peter Costello is trying to hose down concerns about predictions residential rents will increase by double what was originally forecast.
With a $50 a week for the average family, reduction in tax and increase in family allowance, a rent increase of $8 or $10 is affordable, and at the end of that, families are better off.
But welfare groups claim the extra cost will make a difference, and the opposition agrees.
Doesn't matter if rents are rising $8 a week or $10 a week. He says at the end of the day, it's all affordable. How out of touch is he?
Laurie Wilson reporting for Nightline.
As well as absorbing daily lashings of information about the GST, Australians are also coping with new rules for health insurance, which come into effect on July the 1st. Australians over 30 who don't join a private scheme before that date will pay higher premiums, prompting big numbers of people running for cover.
Normally these MBF operators handle 1,000 calls a day. In the past few weeks they've been getting 6,000, with people desperate to sign before July 1.
Welcome to MBF. How may I help you?
Have your optical, physio, chiro.
To ease the pressure on call centres, some staff have hit the streets, handing out nearly 4 million membership forms.
Generally, people are very much aware of it. So, as I say, if they see it, they want to grab it. You must do something about that because the deadline's fast approaching.
Health Minister Michael Wooldridge conceded a short-term extension may be needed for those struggling to sign up because of the demand.
If there are a group of people who just can't get on because the demand is so great, well then we'll look at some way of managing that over the next couple of weeks, but I see it as a problem over a couple of weeks.
If you're an existing Health Fund member, now is not a great time to be making routine inquiries. Many companies admit they've had to divert operators and desk staff to handle the rush of new members at the expense of old ones. With less than 2 weeks to go, some potential members are being dragged reluctantly to the sign-up counter.
I'm leaving to the last possible minute.
You worried about it at all, getting it in?
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Thousands aren't signing at all. According to the Health Insurance Association, by July 1, a third of Australians will have private cover. The other 2/3 sticking with the public system. Mark Burrows reporting for Nightline.
There's quiet confidence that Fiji's month-long political crisis could be about to end and the hostages freed within days. Coup leader George Speight agrees that peace talks are almost complete. A deal on a new power structure is expected to be signed tomorrow.
Families of the hostages held for nearly 5 weeks in the Fijian parliament have been told to expect to see their loved ones this weekend. Lawyers have drawn up the agreement, which the army and hostage taker George Speight are expected to sign tomorrow. It will free former Prime Minister Chowdhury and the other hostages, give Speight amnesty and end the crisis that has traumatised the island nation.
This week we hope it'll be all over.
But promises have been made and broken before, although this time the military is confident the coup is about to end.
Yeah, we have the same view that this is the closest we have come. There's an air of optimism, not only to the parties to this crisis, but also to the country as a whole, that we are coming to a close here. And I think we should capture the moment.
But Fijians are expected to pay a heavy price for years to come. Today, public servants were told they'd have to take a 20% pay cut to cover the mounting costs of the emergency. Add to that the worrying news that Fiji is now losing $1.3 million a day from tourists cancelling. In Sydney, Fiji's union representative said the trade union bans organised by the ACTU are serving a purpose, and Australia should go even further.
I think we are looking at increasing the intensity of the bans and also what other actions we can take.
But if Australia and New Zealand ban us as they have, I mean, we'll probably take our business to Malaysia and China or someplace like that. Why not? No problems. In fact, you guys need us more than we need you.
The one unknown in all of this is how the overthrown Prime Minister will react once he's freed. Some think the former fiery union leader might in fact call his own revolution of sorts, refuse to accept all the signed agreements and still demand to be the Prime Minister of Fiji. In Suva, Robert Penfold reporting for Nightline.
A Sydney man has been found guilty for the second time of murdering his former girlfriend. In 1995, Frances Tizzoni's body was found in bushland near the northern suburb of Frenchs Forest. She'd been strangled. Her jilted boyfriend, John Serratore, was convicted 3 years later of the killing, but was granted a retrial on a legal technicality. Serratore is considering another appeal. Defiance and rebellion are common teenage traits, but a strike by students in a New South Wales school has even riled their fellow classmates. The group walked out yesterday claiming there was unfair discipline at Rutherford Technology High, and their action could lead to expulsion.
So you've been suspended for smoking.
I got into a fight.
Several of the striking students, mostly from Year 11, admit they aren't angels, but they insist teachers are targeting them.
The fact is that there are different punishments for different people. 2 sets of people, 2 sets of rules.
Yesterday, about 200 of the school's 900 pupils protested over the suspension of Year 9 student Eliza White for swearing at another pupil. 25 took it further. They deny their action is about a ban on smoking and kissing, while the principal rejects suggestions that the punishment is too harsh.
If students do the wrong thing, then
It's their behaviour and they have to accept the consequences.
She's been backed by the New South Wales Education Minister.
If these young people don't like to abide by the standards and values of that school, well then they can get out of the school.
Students have even attacked classmates.
It's not as if they're not being listened to. The principal has taken action. She has organised a committee. We've got less than 12 weeks to go before our exams, and this has just become so disruptive.
But the Parents and Citizens Association is on the side of the strikers.
In a democracy, you have a right to protest things that you don't like.
Some parents are also supportive.
He's standing up for something he believes in, and I'm so glad that he is.
There are concerns the strike will set a precedent for other schools.
I'll do anything it takes to see my friends and myself and every other student in this country treated equally.
A meeting will be held on Monday to sort out the Rutherford matter, but continued refusal to conform could mean expulsion. Fiona Pye for Nightline.
After the break, the wedding feast that ended in a fight, and Charles and Camilla, their first official outing together. There was a gas emergency in one of Brisbane's biggest stores today, with 14 people taken to hospital and 8 more needing treatment at the scene. Hundreds of shoppers fled David Jones when fumes filled the complex during routine maintenance. Police and firefighters were among those overcome by the refrigeration gas. The leak was eventually contained and the store will reopen tomorrow. A coroner today delivered a blistering report into the death of a New South Wales teenager who died of meningococcal disease after doctors on the state's central coast incorrectly diagnosed her illness 3 times. The court found that despite blood tests which indicated a bacterial infection, Carissa Suvalis was treated for the flu. The 18-year-old died in a private hospital a week after contracting the disease. The doctors face disciplinary action from health authorities. Carissa's mother is launching legal moves for compensation. A Melbourne solicitor suffering from an asbestos-related disease and with only weeks to live has been awarded a record payout of $1.1 million. 56-year-old Ken Beraldson, celebrating his win this evening, was exposed to asbestos 36 years ago when he was a university student working at an asbestos pipes plant in outer Melbourne. He sued companies CSR and James Hardie after he was diagnosed with mesothelioma last month. Gold Coast conman Peter Foster has been outfoxed himself, losing his long legal battle to stay in Australia. The High Court has turned down his final appeal. Foster will now be extradited to face fraud charges in Britain.
With a shrug of her shoulders and a shake of her head, Mrs. Louise Foster knew it was the last roll of the dice to save her son.
This is it. This is D-Day.
Conman, bail jumper and wanted in the United Kingdom, Peter Foster has been held in maximum security for 2.5 years as he fought his way through the courts. But they needn't have hurried. The judges 4-1 said it was Foster who must go. Louise Foster was crushed.
How do you think I feel? 2.5 years of fighting. However, it's the court's decision.
I have assisted law enforcement agencies and placed myself at risk.
In a video from prison, Foster claimed his life as a supergrass spy in the UK jail system meant he would be a target if sent back. Foster's checkered life was bigger than tabloid headlines. With Page 3 girl Samantha Fox on his arm, it saw him convicted of a con involving slimming tea. He's had court appearances from the US to the UK, where he skipped out on a sentence and was nicked flying into Darwin. Just when he goes is still to be determined, but the UK will pay. Mrs. Foster believes that when her son does board that plane, it will be the last time she sees him. She wants the Australian authorities to ensure his safety.
Appropriate authorities in the United Kingdom are quite capable of protecting people who are extradited from Australia.
Jane Hodgkinson for Nightline.
An argument over the tasty morsels at a backyard wedding in Melbourne has landed one of the guests in jail for 12 months. Dean Phillipson assaulted the caterer after his mother was stopped from taking the first bite.
Sampling the savouries never had such serious consequences. Jacqueline Phillipson's predilection for pork crackling left a caterer with broken ribs and her son defending himself against assault charges before a county court jury. At a friend's wedding reception in Hallam, she grabbed a plateful fresh from the spit and put it at her feet. Caterer Ken Bench took it back, objecting to her early advance on the food. The judge said that minor incident prompted an evening of abuse, during which the caterer's tray of utensils was knocked over 3 times. He said the behaviour rendered the wedding an absolute disaster. The host had to ask Mrs. Phillipson's son Dean to leave, but he later rushed the caterer from behind, raining blows on the 59-year-old. Guests had to restrain the young man as Mr. Bench fell into a trailer, breaking 2 ribs, bruising his arm and injuring his eye.
I must admit, tongue-in-cheek, that every time somebody asked for the crackle, it's put the wind up me a bit.
Dean Phillipson was sent to jail for the assault after his father was fined for poking the caterer in the face.
I still find it so hard to believe. It just seems so unnecessary, totally uncalled for, unprovoked. You know, they won't be on any invitation lists in the future.
Karen Huff for Nightline.
Belgium authorities have revealed information which might help identify the 58 Chinese found dead on Monday in the English port of Dover. The victims were being smuggled from Europe in an airtight trucking container. 2 others survived. 2 months ago, Belgian police detained 60 illegal Chinese immigrants. They were videoed, then ordered to leave the country, but were not escorted out. British police believe illegal immigrants already in the UK might be relatives of those killed, but are too scared to come forward to help with identification. Relief for Belgian police, with English soccer fans apparently too dejected at their elimination from Euro 2000 to indulge in any post-match violence. After earlier riots, English fans had been on their best behaviour. Their team threatened with expulsion from the competition if supporters caused further trouble. Match details from Euro 2000 later in sport on Nightline. When Los Angeles police are in the news, it's usually allegations of being too heavy-handed or too quick on the trigger. But now they're under attack for being too soft on rioters celebrating the city's national basketball victory. The chaos doesn't bode well for a much bigger and potentially more volatile event planned for the city.
Owners of looted businesses near the stadium were furious today. Police had given them this promise.
They had all the security under control, that there wouldn't be any problems.
The police were wrong. For an hour, the rioters had free rein, attacking limousines, moving onto news vans, even police cars. They looted businesses with no one trying to stop them.
And I have seen no signs of Los Angeles police officers.
The police strategy to stand back until enough officers arrive to disperse the crowd. Today, they claimed it worked.
Although there was some property damage, we believe that it was a successful event.
They just dropped the ball.
The damage to Steve Orth's car dealership, a bad sign for the Democratic Party convention here in August. The anarchists who created so much chaos during the World Trade Organization meeting in Seattle last year have vowed to do it again here during the convention. And battle-hardened political agitators will be a lot harder to handle than unruly basketball fans. Still, LA says it's prepared.
I am highly confident that we will do the best job of security in any convention in history.
In Los Angeles, Nick McCallum for Nightline.
Prince William is spending his 18th birthday with his nose buried in a book, studying for his high school exam tomorrow in art history. It's expected he'll pursue the subject at university. William had to pass on a big party at Windsor Castle overnight to mark a crop of coming royal birthdays, including the Queen Mother and Princess Anne. And the young prince has plenty more reading on his hands, with thousands of birthday cards arriving at St James's Palace. Looking remarkably comfortable in a storm of camera flashes, Camilla Parker Bowles has accompanied Prince Charles for the first time on an official engagement, a celebrity dinner for the Prince's Charity Foundation. The long-time royal lover is gradually being accepted by the British public, but as for becoming Queen herself one day, well, that remains a very touchy issue.
another small step on the road to public acceptance. Charles and Camilla arrive for their first official engagement together. A tentative Camilla Parker Bowles was guided into the building and persuaded to pause briefly in the doorway. The flashes of over 100 photographers reminiscent of that occasion at the Ritz 18 months ago when they first appeared for a private engagement. Despite a small, though noisy, protest from anti-monarchists, celebrities wish them well.
They've been together for a long time. It shouldn't surprise anybody.
I think everyone has the right to live their lives, and I hope they're happy.
It's so great. So great. I think people that like each other should be left alone to be with each other.
The palace played down the significance of the appearance. Royal watchers not so certain.
We're going to see a year or so of this, and then it's going to move on a stage. And the question, of course, is that going to be marriage?
This was one of the most photographed royal events in recent history. Cameras even allowed briefly inside the dinner to record a slow but ever-developing public relationship.
Keep moving, generally.
Lane Calcutt reporting for Nightline.
The Olympic flame is in the central Queensland town of Emerald tonight, but not everyone's been celebrating as the flame passes by. Residents of the tiny town of Dingo, west of Rockhampton, were miffed that the flame was being driven through town and not run. Parents organised their own torch relay, and when the so-called cavalcade finally came through, residents turned their backs. Local Bill Craig, who'd gone to nearby Duaringa to carry the flame, then arrived jogging through Dingo with a contingent of kids, even though the flame on his torch was out. In a moment, the latest sport, including action from the European soccer, and it's nearing full time in Laurie Daly's brilliant rugby league career. Now to sport, and in AFL, Kevin Sheedy faces the tribunal tomorrow night after being charged with misconduct over his on-field outburst against West Coast last weekend. The Essendon coach's hand across the throat action came after one of his players was injured in a behind-the-play incident. On the eve of his tribunal appearance, the Eagles have heightened tensions by running a Sheedy poll on their official website. The ballot asked for votes on whether Sheedy should be fined or suspended. Sheedy is expected to plead guilty with a hefty financial penalty, the most likely outcome. Laurie Daly is to wind up his illustrious rugby league career at the end of the season. His hopes for continuing dashed by a chronic knee problem. Daly, one of the game's most skilled and respected players, spent his entire 13-year career with Canberra.
He's been playing rugby league for 25 of his 30 years, and it was never going to be easy to stop. Emotions were laid bare as Laurie's family and teammates gathered with the media to hear confirmation that this season would be his last. His dodgy knee finally getting the last say.
And 2 weeks ago it hit home to me when the guys were having a game of touch football and I couldn't join in because I knew that my leg was hurting and it would have taken me 20 minutes to warm up.
Of his many career highlights, he treasures victory in the 1989 Premiership and captaining his country. And although he remains in good form, he believes injuries wouldn't allow him to give his best in future years.
I don't want to be running around for the sake of hanging on and being regarded as a guy that just won't let it go.
And as a one-club man, he's a rare commodity these days. And while all have witnessed his footballing talents, colleagues at Canberra have seen much more.
I say quite often, he's a great player, but he's a better fella than what he's a footballer.
Daly's footballing priority now, a Raiders premiership in 2000.
Told the guys today, I can guarantee them that every game that's left this year, I'll be coming off the field totally exhausted.
Wally Lewis for Nightline.
Two of Europe's most renowned national sides have been humbled at soccer's Euro 2000. England and Germany crashing out of the competition. The once underrated but now feared Portuguese trounced the Germans, while England gave away a late penalty to lose to Romania.
There will always be an England,
But why must its soccer team consistently stumble in world competition? The Romanians came ready to scrap, take their chances and chance their hand.
And they score through Moldova.
Romania contested the ball, not always legally, but with driven passion.
He immediately raises his arm.
Of course, there is a price to pay for such tactics, as Shearer levelled with a penalty.
It's 1-1 and Shearer...
Then followed a moment of inspiration when Paul Scholes kicked over the defence. Michael Owen pounced to give England the lead at half-time.
2-1 England.
But a conservative approach and poor passing played right back into Romania's hands.
Who scores for Romania?
2 minutes from full-time, with Romania stretching the English defence, Philip Neville made the mistake of being too desperate.
Calamity for England.
Because of that tackle and the penalty that followed, Neville has been made the biggest villain in England since David Beckham's indiscretion at the World Cup.
Romania 3.
Their disappointment matched by Germany, as Portugal's Sergio Conceição threw himself into the net for good measure. He made it look as simple as 1-2-3, scoring a hat-trick of goals.
And it's the bus home for Germany now.
At home, German fans were left flatter than an English pint. Ken Sutcliffe for Nightline.
And still to come on Nightline, the finance and the national weather. In finance news, the Australian share market closed 19 points higher today, following a late surge in News Corp. In Tokyo, the Nikkei was up 302 points. In London tonight, the FT 100 is almost 72 points down in morning trading. Gold is fetching $287.45 US an ounce. And in European trading tonight, the Australian dollar is buying 60.05 US cents, 63.3 euro cents, 63.2 yen and 39.9p. The national weather, and areas of high pressure dominate central and northern Australia, while a cold front is moving through the southeast. Another cold front is moving across the Bight. The forecasts: sunny for Darwin, fine in Brisbane, fine as well in Sydney, scattered showers in Canberra, Melbourne, Hobart and Adelaide, and showers as well for Perth. That's the news this Wednesday night from all of us here at Nightline. Good night.